welcome to Fast Politics, Charlie Sykes.
It's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere this week.
So it is like, again, like Trump 1.0, just a complete flurry of news to the point of every story is moving so fast and furious. But I think we should first talk about Alex Padilla, the
Oh,
senator
yeah.
from California who went
Mhm.
to a Kristi Noem presser and wanted to ask a question and got pounced on by a bunch of her goons, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's cut through some of the bullshit. Try to imagine Ron Johnson being, wrestled to the ground in Wisconsin, or Ted Cruz being wrestled to the ground in Texas, or Lindsey Graham shows up at an event, and he is handcuffed in South Carolina. Okay, try to imagine that. Okay, me neither. I
I
can't do
can.
it. I just can't. So that's where I would urge people to have the bullshit meter for all the people explaining. Well, okay, he wasn't wearing his Secret Service pin. Like, no one recognized the United States Senator from California in California. Nobody knew. Kristi Noem
Yeah.
and her entourage didn't notice what was happening here. I mean, and I said this, in my newsletter. As outrageous as it was the way he was treated, I think what was much worse was the reaction, because you could certainly imagine, in a rational, decent universe, people would say, "Okay, we made a mistake. We're really sorry, Senator Padilla. Let's find a way to disagree civilly." But they
Yeah.
didn't. They doubled down. And frankly, if you look at MAGA, MAGA social media, they are loving this. And
Mhm.
I think the Trump folks, the MAGA folks, I mean, they get a kick out of this sort of thing and expect more of
No.
it. And they're grooming themselves. I mean, they're grooming the base to expect and ask for more of this. So the
Yeah.
fact that we got the gaslighting, the hypocrisy, the lying, that's bad enough. But the fact is that they are actively now celebrating it. And you can just see they're all tumescent about it. We humiliated an Hispanic U.S. senator. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right, and it does feel like there is a bottomless appetite for this kind of authoritarianism, which
Yeah,
is
no,
pretty
they like
scary.
this. I mean, people need to and right-wing media, I mean, I'm talking about the fever swamp media is pushing for more aggressive, harder, enforcement of the law. And quite frankly, this is tapping into Donald Trump's id. You wanna talk about the week of the
Right,
ugly American.
right,
The ugly American,
right.
he has loosed, the troops on American streets, and the rhetoric that he's using, that if protesters come out, during my big, beautiful military parade, we're gonna hit them very hard, making no distinction between violent and nonviolent protests. Again, it is Trump in full. Could I disagree with one thing that you said, though? You said it's just like
What?
Trump 1.0. We're having that. This Trump 1.0 feels like a kinder, gentler, more innocent
Yes,
time
for sure,
compared
for
to what
sure,
we
for
have,
sure,
because
for sure.
everything now, frankly, seems a bit existential in what Trump is
Oh,
is doing. It is as if all the masks have been just ripped off,
yes,
and there's
yes,
no pretense, and we're gonna see this sort of Red Square, demonstration in
yeah,
Washington, D.C. And but by the way, Saturday is gonna be lit. That's gonna
yeah,
talk about a
it's
a
gonna be.
news day. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about I'll be giving a talk at a book festival in Nantucket. So
Well,
I'll be it
your New York Times best-selling book, I'm
selling.
guessing.
Yes.
Mhm.
But I mean, but it's very hard for me to multitask. But I want to talk about this is going on. We are seeing images. I want to talk about an image that I saw 2 days ago, which was field workers, right? Fruit pickers in
Mhm.
California being chased down by ICE
I
agents
saw that.
in cars. So let's talk about that. This is a job Americans don't want. They won't take it, right? It's the reason that they are hiring people to do this job is because it's a job no one wants. It was so incredibly disturbing and craven. I want to connect that to the Trump truth, quote unquote, where he said, people are complaining to me that they're losing their people. So talk about that.
Yeah, that was an interesting walk back, wasn't it? You can tell that obviously it's somebody from the agriculture industry, who was having drinks or dinner at Mar-a-Lago and said, "Hey,
Mhm.
this is kind of hard to run all of our farms." By the way, I knew this here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
that the dairy farmers were never into mass deportation. They understood all of this. So it gives you some sense of how policy is made in this administration. I'm trying to imagine how
Mhm.
the Stephen Millers of the world would have reacted to anyone else saying what Donald Trump said. We have these good people who are working
Mhm.
hard here, and in the farms, we have to leave them alone. We're just going after the
Right.
criminals. I mean, this thing is really a shit show.
Yeah.
And I think that you really saw that. And by the way, though, the thing about the enforcement of, the immigration laws that I know it's gotten a lot of attention, but it was just before we came on here, reading a story by Catherine Rampell in, the
Yeah.
Washington Post about the ICE agents who are basically have become secret police. They refuse to identify
Yeah.
themselves. They're wearing
Yep.
masks. They're going around, arresting, detaining, brown people. And,
Yeah.
to live in a society in which you ask for a cop to show his badge or his ID and they refuse and they're wearing masks. Right now, if you're an immigrant or you're a non-immigrant and somebody comes to your house and is like arresting people, how do you know who they are? I mean, it is a
Right.
dangerous, dangerous, ugly situation.
And there's actually reporting of a story of a woman who got where he said he was an ICE agent, and it turned out he was just a
Mhm.
random guy and stole $1,000
Yeah.
from her. I mean, there's a reason that we have police marked like this. I mean, what I think is so interesting is like, when Elon was running our federal government, you'll
I
remember
remember
that
him.
from season 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was really like season 3. Right, or
Yeah.
season
Mhm.
5, I don't know, whatever we're
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
this nightmare. He learned a lot of things about the federal government in real time, right? Like what it did. It feels like we're learning why police are identified, why like Trump is
Yes.
learning these sort of things that we had, that you could have asked anyone in the world and would have told you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it is interesting watching the learning curve of all of these guys. You just kind of hope that, as Donald Trump actually learns how things work, that we don't have that moment where he goes, "What happens if I push this button?" He goes, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to." I don't know. Hey, by the way, we're talking about Senator Padilla. I forgot the most fucked up part of that story.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, the
And
Corey?
yes, yes, yes. The fact is,
Yes, no,
okay,
so
so
say
people
it,
are going,
yeah.
there's nothing wrong. And there's a videotape of the one guy that realized how bad it was the way they were treating him is Corey Lewandowski. Corey Lewandowski, who
Known
n
pacifist.
not at all, but apparently travels
No, I
around with Kristi Noem still. I did not even know that that was a thing, so he runs down the hall and says, "Let him go, let him go." So, how fucked up was it that even Corey fucking Lewandowski knew it was fucked up? I need to make a
it's
bumper
pretty
sticker
fucked
of
up.
that. Yeah, yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Yes, that's true. And so let's talk cause and effect. Trump is, at least the polling I've seen, and there are some other Rasputin polls that show Trump is the greatest North Korean president
Yeah,
ever. But the regular polls that I've seen show him to have the highest disapproval rating that he's ever had,
yeah,
60%.
yeah. No, I mean, look, there's a lot of things that he's doing that I think are appealing to his base. I mean, you watch what he's doing, and if I mean, let me reverse engineer it. If you look at the woolliest, hairiest corners of right wing social media, you can predict what the administration is going to do
Right.
next. I mean, read Stephen
Because
Miller's
they're
tweets.
telling
If you
them
want
to
to
do it. Yeah.
Right, right. But this is not what middle America swing voters, I think, were looking for. Now, I don't know how the polling is gonna play on Los Angeles. I've tried to prepare people for, the fact that, Americans might actually react to the, burning cars and the Mexican flags and say, "We like what Trump is doing." But I've got a new mantra right now that I don't care whether he's winning, okay? It's not a
Right.
winning-losing thing. Sometimes it's just right and wrong. And so let's say, in fact, that he does get the upper hand on his use of the military. I don't think he is. I think it's a losing issue for him, but let's just say that he is. It doesn't matter because there's something about losing causes that have always appealed to me. And if
Right.
democracy and the right of, rule of law and all that, if that's a losing cause, I don't care. Let's draw the
So
red
I'm gonna
line.
well, as we're talking about this, I'm gonna read you a new Reuters Ipsos poll.
Okay.
35% of adults approve of Trump's response to LA
Mm.
protests. The
Oh,
35, 50% disapprove. By a +9, adults say that the president has gone too far with the arrests of immigrants.
interesting.
So, and
Interesting.
that's from G. Elliott Morris, who's a very smart pollster and ran 538 and knows of what he speaks. So, I do think that ultimately, this is a loser for him.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we're living in a news cycle right now, where things are happening very, very, very quickly. You have one incident, you have one Kent State-like incident with, shooting protesters, or the other way around. So on this, I do think that it's very, very important. Two things. Very, very important, I think, for Democrats who are critical of, and those of us who are critical of Donald Trump, to make it very clear that we are not defending or rationalizing violence in any way whatsoever. These
Yes,
protests should be
100%.
massive, and they should be peaceful.
Peaceful,
Um,
yes. And in
I
fact,
I actually
violence undermines the message.
it's a gift to Donald Trump. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
imagine, for example, watching the protests over the weekend with masses of American flags and maybe "Don't tread on me" flags, and then watch the way law enforcement reacts to that. Make it hard on that. Make it hard on Trump. Don't make it easy on Trump.
Yes, flags, definitely American flags, I think, and "Don't tread on me," that snake, that ridiculous snake, I think
Yeah.
it's very good.
Mhm.
So Donald Trump got played this week too, and I wanna talk about that because it seems like there's quite a lot of spin coming out of this White House about Israel and Trump's great, great relationship with Israel. This is on the heels of Trump's great, great relationship with Vladimir Putin. But
Yeah.
with
He knows that well.
times he Yeah, talk to me.
No, I agree with you. In fact, it is interesting how many people are buying this spin that, the US was really, joined at the hip with Israel, and they were using this misdirection. It was kind of secret, and we misled everybody. That really does seem like it's kind of retrofitting onto what we actually know, that Trump was caught flat-footed. You saw the statement from
Mhm.
Marco Rubio,
Marco
and
Rubio, yeah.
once again you find a lot of these guys who kind of look, who understands taco? That Trump
Trump
always
always
caves in?
chickens out.
Vladimir
Yeah,
I'm sorry, chickens out. You know who understands taco? Vladimir Putin understands it, President Xi
yeah,
understands it, and
yeah, he
Benjamin
really does.
Netanyahu understands it. And so I think
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
seeing that play out right now, but there's kind of a flop sweat around Trump saying, "We were part of that too. Really, really, we were part of that. Hey, could I
mhm,
join the club?" No.
yeah, yeah.
He looked weak and impotent and really out of step. Plus,
I want
now the world
Go
is
on.
an incredibly dangerous place at a
Yeah,
time when we have, a cosplaying, idiot like, Peter Hegseth in charge of the Department of Defense. So it is a very, very dangerous time, and probably one of the worst times to be staging a stupid parade and using
yeah.
American troops on American city streets.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I just wanna go back to the Marco Rubio tweet. So Marco said he had it with most this administration and subsequent administrations have been very careful with their language around Israel, saying they support them basically no
Yes.
matter what. And in this
Right.
tweet, Marco sorta says, "We weren't really involved in this," in a way that
I
makes it
know. He
clear
did.
that this was them playing along by themselves, and then Trump comes in and says, "No, no, I knew all about this."
No, but it is interesting that I feel like we've been talking about Israel bombing Iran to destroy its nuclear capabilities for the last 25 years now.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
again, it's hard to have a really solid opinion on this because we're in the fog of war. We don't know what was accomplished and what, I mean, at the end of this process, will Iran be capable of developing a nuclear weapon or not? There are all kinds of things that can go wrong when you're bombing nuclear facilities. So again, the first tranche looks like a successful military operation. In fact, rather stunningly successful for the Israelis. But again, 2 days from now, who knows? I mean, that's it. There's so much
right,
uncertainty out there, and this is exactly the moment when you want solid, sane, reasonable people in charge.
and
Unfortunately, we
not a
don't live in
Fox
that
News
world.
host. Yeah,
Or
but I do
or or
think
a reality TV host as president.
yeah, but it is, yes, so I just wanna just add, it's not really a fact check, but Netanyahu has now been saying for 33 years that
Yep.
Iran was getting a nuke.
Wow.
Seems like a lot of years.
Well, something was going on. I mean, that it one of the interesting questions will be why now? Why did they do this? Was it because there was
Right.
intelligence that they were nearing a bomb? Or is it because somebody wanted, wanted a distraction? We just don't know. Benjamin
Or
Netanyahu now has opened a multi-front war. Again, maybe he has the resources to be able to pursue this, but this doesn't feel like it's gonna be the slap fight of the first time that they exchanged missiles. Remember the first time? Iran basically said, "We're going to retaliate," and then they sent those slow-moving missiles all the way across, which were easily shot down. That had kind of a kabuki dance feel to it. I
yeah,
am guessing that this
yeah.
will not be like that at all.
Well, and I also think it's important to remember that, this is Netanyahu really wants to stay in power, right?
Yes. He
And
has to.
he works from a very similar playbook to Donald Trump, and so
Yes.
this getting in a war is a good way to stay in power.
Well, I mean, these are all the questions that you have. Normally, I'll be honest with you, I would normally have given the Israelis the benefit of the doubt, except for Benjamin Netanyahu, for exactly the
Yeah.
reasons that you said. But again, we're going to see how the rest of the Mideast reacts, how the world economy reacts to all of this, whether or
Yeah,
not, what the level of damage is to Israel. I mean, this is the potential for a major war. I mean, it's,
yeah.
you know,
And so far, we're seeing oil prices spike. So that is and again, I
always
just wanna
does.
get back to this. Trump's central thesis when he ran for president was that the second time he said these things, right? That what we knew were lies, but we couldn't necessarily people didn't they weren't the people wanted to believe them. He said, "I'm gonna make things cheaper." Right? I'm
Mhm.
gonna,
Yeah.
groceries, gas, right? I'm gonna make it cheaper, and I'm gonna end forever wars. So, that seems like neither of those things are happening.
Well, again, both those things now are on the bubble, and
Right.
the polls that you are citing, which would suggest that he's below 40% on approval ratings, would suggest that it's not working. Now, again, I am really struck by the way, when your Reuters poll is very, very interesting because Donald Trump in the White House and with sitting in the Oval Office with Stephen Miller is absolutely convinced that things like what's happening in Los Angeles are winners for him, that they take
Yes,
away
absolutely
attention from
convinced.
the losers.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about like about a week and a half ago, there was the night of the bright shiny objects. When the Elon Musk thing was the big story, and there was that fight, and it looked like he was about to cave into China on tariffs. So he dropped all of these things all at once. Remember,
Right.
he dropped an order on a travel ban and everything. Then, of
Yeah,
course,
travel
immediately
ban.
followed by Los Angeles. Well, these are all things that he thinks are, like, in his wheelhouse, that he really thinks this is the red meat, and it is red meat for his base. But,
Mhm.
I think that, Stephen Miller has talked him into thinking, the more cruelty, the more brutality, the better it is for you. That
Mhm.
may turn out to be one of the great miscalculations, which, by the way, would go a bit actually a long way to restoring my faith in the American people. If they look at
Yeah.
this and go, "I'm sorry, no, we think this is fucked up. We have retained
Yeah.
enough dignity and enough perspective that we are not going along with this sort of thing, that it's not gonna be
Yeah.
1970 all over again."
Yeah, and I think that's a real question. I do think, I just read this incredible William F. Buckley biography by Sam
Mm,
Tenenhouse, which I recommend
mm,
highly. Yeah, because
mhm,
I'm traveling. I'm having the best time. I'm just reading,
yeah,
but I don't have to.
mhm,
It's just me, so
this
I'm
is
just reading
wonderful.
books and
Yeah,
going on. Yeah, well, I'm a little confused. I go to the wrong place and I miss the plane, but I'm good. But I read this
sorry to hear
incredible
that.
William F. Buckley biography, and in it, Tenenhouse talked about how much the country really has changed, and that pushback in the '70s, these cultural shifts, these backlashes, they sort of you 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I don't know that you can do back to the 1950s.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you were never going back to the 1950s, but a lot of these guys you can see are thinking in previous decades, how did how did the public react to uses of force and strength? But again, this is really very, very close to the essence of Trumpism right now, which is strength versus
Mhm.
weakness, brutality being a sign of manliness. There's a reason why Kristi Noem has become the Ice Barbie, and we sort of made fun of her, about the whole shooting her puppy in the face, but the shooting the puppy in the face story was written as part of a resume to get a job in this administration. She got the job that she wanted in this administration, and is turning out to be just as deplorable and stupid as we thought she would be. But again, they feast on all of this. So I think the
Yeah.
thing to keep watching for always is hubris, the arrogance of hubris and going too far. This is an administration that honestly believes it has all the cards, that it is immune. What could possibly go
Mhm.
wrong? And by the way, the one thing we haven't talked about was that in the run up to the big, beautiful military parade,
Yes.
you also had that appearance at Fort Bragg, where clearly I think that Donald Trump is doing 2 things. He's by deploying the troops, he's trying to desensitize Americans to the use of military force, but he's also right
100%.
now hoping, I think, to radicalize the US military and the security
Yeah.
apparatus in this country, radicalize the troops, grooming them to
Yeah.
be instruments of MAGA. So you put all of those things in a line, and it is deeply dangerous and ominous. And look, I agree with you that, I mean, Trump, I'm still, I have PTSD from Trump 1.0, but Trump
Yeah.
1.0 always had guardrails. And, that
Yeah.
when he wanted to shoot protesters, you had, the Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, in the room. You had Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in
Yeah.
the room. You even had Bill Barr, the Attorney General, saying, "You can't do that, Mr. President." There is no one around Donald Trump who's gonna tell him no this time around.
Yeah. That's right. That's exactly right. Charlie Sykes, thank you for joining us. Thank
Thank
you.
you, New York Times
Uh,
bestselling author, Molly Jong-Fast.